If there is something I do believe in, it's respect. And I hear it sometimes, even in it's not in patois or whatever, but people say to each other, respect. And I think that's very important. I've been here a year and a half, a little bit more. And with COVID, it has been hard. And we've all been locked up. But from the minute that we could go out, I did that. And I've seen marvelous places.
Okay, of the places that you have been, which has stood out for you? Is there any place that you have gone back to more than once?
Yeah, I fell in love with Portland, but of course, I mean, I did the same question to my team when we were all sitting together after COVID, and I said, I can't have to know what is a favorite place of my team here, expats and also people from Jamaica. And actually, I think Portland won with everyone, so it's not very original. But I love Portland because Portland is like, for me, a bit more like the real Jamaica. It's not like the touristic place where you have to pick hotels. And you can just see, how Jamaica was and how it still is and how authentic it is. So I love that part. But that doesn't mean that it's just Portland. There are other places. I love downtown Kingston. I fell in love with downtown Kingston, even if there's a lot to be done in downtown Kingston. But I think this country has so many different things to get to know. And coming from abroad, it's like the minimum. No? You need to go around and discover. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen the entire country yet. I've gone around, but I haven't gone sufficiently inside the country.
Did you ask to come to Jamaica, or were you told you were coming to Jamaica?
I did ask to come to Jamaica, but it is very hard. It's very competitive. It's not because you are an ambassador of the European Union that automatically, after one post you get another one. Our diplomatic service consists of officials from the European institutions turning into diplomats since we established the diplomatic service in 2009. And 1/3 of our service are European member states diplomats. So it's very competitive. We have to go through panels and we have to be selected. And of course you can put a number of countries on the list, where you want to go, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be sent there. So yes, I did put Jamaica on the list. And I did that because I love Latin America. And I've been spending 15 years of my career with Latin America, but it was time for a change. So I thought not going too far away from Latin America. Mm-hmm. In the same part of the world, but a completely different culture, a completely different world, was going to be very enriching. So here I am.
What are some of the major differences that you have seen so far?
There are many. And it's not better or worse, it is like different. I think one of the very good things, the things which I really like about being in this country, is the political stability, democracy, the rule of law. It works. There are things which are not perfect, but that's everywhere. But you have two political parties. One is stronger than the other. We all know how is the situation at this moment in the country. But you do not have those extreme right or left wing or populist parties, which means that you have a political stability in which you can work. And in Latin America, it is very much going from the extreme one side to the other side, which of course is very interesting if you like politics. But of course, it is also sad because the country always, when you have elections, starts from scratch. And so that is what I really think is a huge difference between the Latin American countries and the Caribbean countries, and Jamaica in particular. When I arrived, I said it actually to the Prime Minister. I said, wow, I've only been here for a couple of weeks, but I'm impressed because, the institutions, the system, it works. And well, he was honest enough to say there was still a lot of work to be done.
Yes,
But it was, for me, it's a striking difference.
Yes. I want you to raise for me the table of content, so to speak, of the issues that you want placed on the table in your time here? What would be your top?
Yeah,
what
you
would be your
referred to
chapter
the
one?
event last week, which is really important because it's a very significant grant, which means these are funds that the country does not need to pay back. But taking aside everything that we do in order to support the country in its development, and very many different areas of support, what I really think is most important is that we start to see each other in a different way. We are not just the European Union coming here as a donor providing grants to a country. I mean, we've probably, the origin of our being here has been mostly that. Like, how can we accompany developing countries in the world, ACP countries, that's when it all started. We came here like 47 years ago, in developing. I think it's still important, and we will continue to do so, but I think it's time to change the chip. Like, we are not just a donor. We are a bloc of countries. We stand for something. We have our values, our beliefs, and we do think that Jamaica shares many of those. So, values can never be overrated. Certainly not in the 21st century. I think we've all learned the last 10, 15, 20 years that the world has become so interconnected. There's so many challenges that we cannot deal with on our own. And even if we are European Union and we're big and we are prosperous, etc., we cannot deal with the challenges of the world on our own. So we need friends and we need allies. And maybe we should see the relationship between the European Union and Jamaica a little bit more as a partnership instead of a donor-recipient relationship. I think that is a message which I gave when I arrived here, which I am really trying to put out there all the time. Even if I'm in the newspaper very often, groundbreaking or cutting ribbons or giving grants, and because of course we need to give visibility to all the support we give to the country, because otherwise my European Union taxpayers are not going to like it, and we need to make sure that the country, the people, the beneficiaries know who's actually paying the bill for the grant of last week, $8 million US. Who's paying that? So we need to make visibility for that, and we do that, and I think it's really important that the Jamaican people know that. But it's not just about that. It's a lot more. We need Jamaica, and Jamaica needs us to fight against climate change. So I think there's so many issues on which we need each other, and big or small, that's not important. You have one vote in the UN. We have one vote per country. It's not about the economic size of a country. It's about what we believe in. So yes, I believe that values, democracy, rule of law, the protection of human rights, the dignity of human beings, all of these things, they are so important. And sometimes we may, it may go out of our sight. We take it for granted, and we cannot take it for granted. You see what has happened now with the Russian invasion in Ukraine. These are the kind of things you could not even have thought of a year or a couple of years ago, and it just happens. So we need countries like Jamaica. It's not just that you need our support with a grant. We need each other.
The European Union is big on climate resilience efforts. And I noticed that $128 million is given to the forestry department for the planting of trees.
And other things.
Yes. But with respect to the tree planting program, because I'm thinking that these are problems that you want to offset, not that the part of the objective would be to retain a natural habitat that will allow both people to live and storms to pass through, and yes, the whole ecology operates as it should, and damage is minimal.
If I may, you really come in I'm learning things right now.
Okay.
I'm fascinated because in the forthcoming programming, we try to set priorities. What do we want to do? And one of our priorities is exactly what we were referring to. The forestry is ongoing. We really, the biodiversity, forest management, livelihoods around forests, really important. We're working on that. We have a very, very big program ongoing. But what you were referring to, like the resilience and downtown Kingston, is, one of the things that I really would like to contribute to. It's not going to be an easy objective. I've been talking with lots of people. I'm actually learning now from what you say because I didn't know what you were saying about the squatting. I have been discussing a little bit about the squatting and whether or not people should be relocated. These are all very sensitive questions, which I don't think it's up to the European Union to take any position. That is, the country itself, the government, the people who live in downtown Kingston. But I do believe that if we would be uniting forces, and I'm not just saying European Union, I'm talking about European Union, but I'm talking about the World Bank, I'm talking about the Inter-American Development Bank, I'm talking about many countries, even with smaller contributions. If we could do something to revitalize downtown Kingston, make it more resilient, make it, more attractive for tourism. There's so much potential. I just love downtown Kingston, and I mentioned it before, not because it's such a nice place to go and walk around. there are things which are amazing. I love the murals. I really love those streets. I love the seaside. But there's so much more that can be done. And once you start working on that, and I'm trying to sit down with many people to see what can be done. You also see how many difficulties and challenges there are. The squatting is one of them, and what you were just telling me, I wasn't really aware that was also for political reasons so sensitive. I didn't know. I was more thinking about, is it good or bad to relocate people? Is that something we need to build it up, bottom up, with the people who live there? Or should we relocate them and not having them living in sometimes inhumane conditions and make sure they get a better life, which is maybe not the place that they are squatting or somewhere else? These are kind of questions that I do not have the answer. But I'm really interested in actually seeing, is there a possibility, to get downtown Kingston back, where it actually used to be, and to become a very attractive kind of, center for tourism. Look at all the cruise ships that could come. If you work with this, I call it a half moon, around, International Seabed Authority is there, UN is there, and you build around that, and you start little by little. Would it not have a positive impact as well for all the vulnerable neighborhoods around this half moon? And could we address security at the same time and economic growth and these kind of things? I'm really fascinated. I'm not fascinated because it's a challenge, but I really would hope that we can unite forces and do something. Jamaica is a country where, I already referred to the political stability, but let us look at the macroeconomic management of the country. There have been problems, of course, and we know, that the International Monetary Fund has come in, but then the government has done a quite impressive job in order to get things, straightened out. Still very challenging, but I think we all see the efforts which have been made by the country. And the European Union, when we work or we assist a third country, for us it's very important how public finances are managed. Because it's all about trust, no? Either you say we're here having, a couple of million euros or US dollars. Sometimes it's difficult for me to calculate in Jamaican dollars because it's big sums. What do you do with it? If you do not 100% trust the government you're working with, not because the government has a different opinion or anything, but just you do not know whether the money is going to be well spent, then very often you work with intermediaries, development agencies or but you don't give the money to the government because you're not really sure if they are capable and able willing to use that money in the right way. Now, what I'm saying is with Jamaica, we've done a lot of those assessments on the public finance management, and we did come to the conclusion that we can trust the micro public expenditure management and many of those terms for that. And these are really neutral, objective expert assessments. It's not even us, like it's not me or my team. We have experts coming, from World Bank, from IMF, whatever, checking out. So what do? Because of the fact that we have trust in the country, we actually are able to inject funds into the budget of the government. And that's what we did with forestry. So how does it work? The country says, we have lovely forests, we want to keep them, we want to maintain them. Climate change, there are lots of reasons why we think that our forests are important. So the country adopts a forest management plan. And we think that is lovely. We're not going to finance the entire implementation of that plan, but we will give that incentive for the government to implement its own plan. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we give money, we inject it in the budget. We are not implementing. The government decides what to do with the money. But of course the government has a plan, no? And we like the plan. But we don't tell the government that they have to, plant trees or preserve mangroves or stimulate sustainable livelihoods around the forests. The government has decided that it wants to do that, and we are giving money every year because it's a 3 or 4 year program. Every year when the government can show us they've done 1, 2, 3. So it's not like a blank check. The government has a plan. We decide, we would think it's important that by the end of the year you can show us A, B, C objectives. If the government does it, we pay. We do continue to have trust in the government. And now we're going into digital, we're going into green downtown Kingston resilience, and we're going again into security because that will remain one of the major challenges of this country. But that's a way of working we cannot allow to do with any single country. Jamaica in the Caribbean is like our model. Is the country that, we show the other ones how we do it here.
Okay.
We're gonna choose at least 5.
Okay. 3,
4, or 5 NGOs that are going to work with budgets between 200 and 500,000 euros. So that's one thing we do, really important. But then also when we do the budget support, for instance, of forestry or the citizen security, we inject money into the budget of the government. But we think it's important that civil society accompanies the process. Because civil society, the people, they also need to work with the government and tell the government what is really needed in forestry, for instance. What are the things that the people need? So we always try to combine the work with the government, with civil society. I think that's hugely important because, otherwise it would be unbalanced. Let me please repeat, it is not just about money. It's not just about the European Union coming here and giving a grant.
Belize, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos,
And Cayman
Islands, Jamaica. I wanted to find out from you, are the Jamaican issues similar to issues in those islands?
Somehow, yes, they are. Somehow, yes, they are, because as I said, one of the big differences between Latin America and the Caribbean is the more stable political system. And I've seen both in the Bahamas, both in Belize, and in Jamaica that you have this two-party system, and someone loses, someone wins, but everyone accepts it. It's like a democracy that is working. I think we haven't really discussed a lot, but violence and crime is for me one of the biggest challenges that I see here, but I also see that in Belize and growing, and I see that in Bahamas. So a couple of those things, then the fact climate change, small island developing states, and the impact of climate change being disproportionate to what these countries deserve. We have to say it the way it is, and you see it in the 3 countries. There are many things that are similar, I have to say. Of course, Jamaica is not Belize, and of course, Belize is not Bahamas, and there's not one single country that you can compare to another one, but you can see that challenges are similar.
Okay. So your development program, it's not a one size fits all.
Oh no, because I mean I have very important development program here in Jamaica. I have a very important one in Belize as well, but I have almost no development program in the Bahamas. The Bahamas is a much more, how should I put it? They have a much higher GDP per capita, and they're very upset that we continue to use that criterion to some extent, not fully. But they do not have any bilateral envelope. They do have they are eligible for regional programs and thematic and all kinds of other programs that we have here, but they do not have a bilateral envelope. So that is completely different. Political dialogue we have with the tree, so that's also the same. There's one thing which I haven't mentioned in our relationship because I've talked a lot about how important is political dialogue and how important is development. This big thing which was extremely important for me in Latin America and here less is trade and investment.
Yes.
I mean, I have been working a lot on enhancing trade between the European Union and the countries where I have been posted before. And when I write here, I saw that was a bit more like, I wanted to do it and put my energy in it, but I'm a bit afraid that it's maybe not what is going to be very successful. I mean,
Wow.
there's not so much to be traded,
Okay.
and the United States is very close. So in order to make sure that the Jamaicans start to export more goods to Europe, we need to have that. And I think we have that in the cultural sector, in services, and I think we should work on that. But I mean, look at the agriculture in the country. It is hard to see. There's so much potential, but there isn't really excess to be exported, and what can be exported goes probably rather to the neighborhood than it goes to Europe.
What is it that Jamaica has, or this region has, that Europe would be interested in under agriculture, for example, for trade?
Yeah, I think what Europeans want is new things.
New things.
New kinds of fruits or new kind. The European consumer has become very kind of interested in the health, the nutritional value of things. They want to discover new things. So there are lots of, look at ginger, look at turmeric, look at the avocados, there's so many of those products and that we didn't even consume in Europe 20 years ago.
Mm.
And little by little the interest is growing. Yeah. So this kind of bio products or new products, new foods, I have here in my garden this mango Bombay.
Right.
I didn't even know it existed before I came to Jamaica. There are fruits here, breadfruit I had never heard about. These kind of things, if the
Not even when you were in Ecuador?
Breadfruit I had never, that's completely new for me. So there are things, I wouldn't go into the traditional banana and sugar cane and whatever, we've gone through that in the past. I think if the country would like to develop exports to the European Union and is looking a little bit what are the kind of products, then go to this kind of bio-healthy products that the European consumer wants. That is what I think. But let me be honest, on the other hand, I also think that Jamaica should produce for its own market.
Okay.
If I may, it's not up to me to decide that, but when I see here that so many products are being imported at high prices, that could be actually grown here. So, not to me, not up to me to judge, but honestly, look at the export market of Europe. If you wish, but then attract investments in very specific products that there is a demand, study it in advance, but do not neglect, there's so many possibilities here to actually grow. The tomatoes here are the best tomatoes that I've ever eaten in my life because they taste like tomatoes. You see what I mean? So there are things, but in order for this to actually happen, I think the country needs investment.
What would be your best advice to Jamaican people as you seek to honor your obligations from the EU?
My best advice. Who am I to give advice to a country? No, but if there is something I do believe in, it's respect. And I hear it sometimes, even in it's not in patois or whatever, but people say to each other, respect. And I think that's very important. I mean, on all levels.